Welcome to Pod and Long. I'm your host, Ryan. It's great to have you with us. I'm here with my co-host, the Word of Drew, and special guest, because Mark is out on bye, it's Mr. Mike.
Howdy.
Welcome to the show, gentlemen. We're recapping week 5, heading into week 6. We promised we would bring back the Diddly Poo map. That's coming back. We're going to bring back the Diddly Poo map this week.
Playoffs.
We're going to see where we're at as we go through these categories, re-rank the teams from square one, and see if we'll get close. We'll see where we're at. We also have a Stripe Spiral coming up. Very excited. Can't wait to hear about Bath Salt's Josh Allen. See what he's been up to.
It's perhaps more fittingly the story of the week is Bath Salt's University of Miami.
That is true. Looking forward to that.
We'll tell that tale through the eyes of the House of Brahm at Louisville, because they are the direct beneficiary.
The House of Brahm. We will also have our Sad Boy boat. 4 people go on the Sad Boy boat. They might need to make a little more room on that thing this week. There's plenty of sand to go around.
I think you may have to rename it.
we have considered renaming it.
I think there might be a new contender for the name.
Okay, we're gonna get there. We have no Mark, so of course we're not going to have the Foo Bar, which he does all the research for. So we're skipping a week of the Foo Bar. Yeah, he'll be back. He's getting healthy this week. He'll be back from bye.
He's flown to London to exact his terrible revenge.
That's where he is. He's going after the Jacks. He's just slashing tires in the parking lot.
Tires will lie because it's London.
True.
And irrationally targeting the entire Jaguar Auto brand in the process.
Going after the auto parts industry.
Just
all right. We have our categories. I want to start with this one. This category is just win, baby. Drew, the Raiders won a game. They beat the Packers on Monday Night Football.
Nope, nobody more surprised than me. If you went to various and sundry sports sites previewing the game, the most interesting article you could find was one about how the 2 Carlson brothers were kicking against each other in a game for the first time, which implies that this was a miserable game that no one should watch. And lo and behold, at the end of the first quarter, it was 3-0. But as I've said for much of the season, the Raiders need to force turnovers, and boy, they finally did that. They got 3 picks off Jordan Love, who I would say suddenly looked mortal, but he's looked mortal all year, despite what I said at the beginning of the season. And Jimmy Garoppolo didn't screw the pooch, which is really that's the baseline ceiling for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I have ridden that sad boy boat.
I was gonna say you both are in the same boat now with Jimmy.
Meanwhile, somewhere in a different game, Derek Carr absolutely lit up a suddenly FCS-looking defense. Anyway, and Josh Jacobs plotted his way to 3.3 yards a carry, and the Raiders snuck out of there with a win. So really, all this proves between the Packers losing and the Raiders winning is something we started to discuss last week, which is there's like 25 teams in this league that I have no idea what they really are.
Right.
Parody.
It's awful.
Parody, you gotta love it. Somewhere Roger Goodell is just rubbing his hands together.
Like I'd love to be in the meeting where they thought, okay, we're going to make this equal, and everyone is going to go up to the top level. In what universe did that seem like a good idea?
What went wrong here for the Packers? Do you have any thoughts on what happened here over the last couple of weeks? Is it just that they played the Bears and we just didn't understand how bad the Bears were?
They played the Bears, and also they're missing their top running back, which surreptitiously screwed my fantasy football team because I was not in a position to make the substitution late by the time he was announced as out. But, they're missing their top running back. They've got injuries on their offensive line. The same story as ever for the Packers pretty much since the end of the Rodgers era. And, I don't know. It's maybe the Raiders are a broken clock at home. I don't have a great explanation for anything that happened in this game.
Okay. It happened though. Jordan Love. I said this to somebody at work today. It's like every time Jordan Love throws a pass, it looks beautiful, but it goes to the team. Like he has a great looking throw.
The thing I did come away from with this is I think I was reaffirmed in my assertion that I think Christian Watson's pretty good. You know, like I think he came out of the draft as a dude who could run in straight lines real fast, and I've come to believe that he might actually be capable of playing the wide receiver position. Like I think that guy's nice.
Maybe they got something there. Okay, all right. Mike, you got any thoughts on this game?
I have never been a believer in Jordan Love. I've never been a believer in the Packers as a Niners fan. They along with the Cowboys ruined a good chunk of the 90s for me. So every time I see Packers fans suffer, sorry, Shay, I'm okay with it. I think it just comes down to the fact that they built this team around a style of quarterback who no longer plays there. Mm-hmm. And Jordan Love, whatever his skill set is, and again, I think it's early enough where, he's been in the league 4 years, but he doesn't have that many starts under his belt.
He's essentially a rookie.
He's basically a starting rookie, and I wouldn't throw him out yet, but also just where's the talent on that team? Like I've never been a big believer in most of what they do offensively because look at what that was Rodgers' biggest complaint was who are you drafting for me? Who am I throwing the ball to? And you'd say, okay, fine. You built a lights out defense on the other side of the ball in the draft, and they didn't. Like the Packers defense isn't that great either.
They're a mediocre.
Yeah, they're a mediocre team in what is shaping up to be potentially one of the worst divisions in football.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Wow.
The NFC South still exists, Mike.
That is true, but
so does the AFC South.
But remember, the NFC South has 3 teams with 3 wins.
That's true.
Okay. There's only 8 wins total in the NFC North.
Wow.
Yeah, they're bad.
The number, and this game proves it by virtue of the Raiders suddenly rising to the occasion and the Packers falling to it. The number of teams that Caleb Williams' dad is going to have to examine has skyrocketed dramatically.
You know what? That's a very good point. Should we get to that right now?
Sure, I'm game.
Should we bring this up? Here, hold on. Let me get the correct window set. Here we go. All right. Here we are. We've got our categories. Super Bowl. Playoffs.
You actually named it Caleb Williams' dad.
Always 2-2. Sad boys. We have 3 shit categories. Maybe we should get rid of one of these. Sad boys, diddly poo, Caleb Williams' dad.
We can wipe out sad boys. I mean,
you want to get sad boys out of there?
Thing.
All right, let me get sad boys out of there.
The 2-2 category is a purgatory of its own. So you're basically a sad boy if you're in either one of those.
Okay, I like that.
We call that the Charger zone.
Yeah.
The Chargers.
or the Jeff Fisher.
Can we just make a Chargers? And they're in their own. All right.
Jeff Fisher wearing a Chargers shirt.
All right. As we go through each category in each game, we'll move these around. See what we think. Green Bay was a playoff team at one point. Are they always 2-2 or are they diddly poor?
For me, they're now an always 2-2.
All right. Mike, you agree?
I would agree. It's early enough in the season, and like I said, that division is bad. So there's a couple of winnable games in there for them. Okay. I'm not sure who the North is playing across this year. But
there's
room for improvement there. The Raiders. Drew,
the Raiders belong. The Raiders are still firmly in the Caleb Williams' dad camp. They're not going to get which I think actually moves them down one category, despite the fact that they.
You mean they're diddly poo?
Well, that's where I had them originally.
Yeah, they're not,
or I had them whatever the one. I had them as a sad boy, not a straight diddly poo in the first. But now that we've condensed the categories, they're not going to get the first overall pick because there are teams that are even worse. But they are like Caleb Williams' dad has them on the fringe of his vision.
He could see them trading up. Maybe.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I like that. We're going to continue with this the entire show. So if you watch on YouTube, you will get to see that tier ranking. All right. Next category is for Mike.
Hey.
It's called Brocktoberfest. Or Dak is back. Either one. 49ers destroyed the Cowboys. All they do is beat the Cowboys. How many in a row is this? A million.
Yeah, there's this season, last season playoff, the season before playoffs. This is great. Even us just absolutely, I mean, we had Josh Johnson out there in Philly. That game was over before it even started. All right, whatever. Good. At least beat the Cowboys. I always want to beat the Cowboys forever because I hate them.
Oh, the rivalry is just not there anymore. The Cowboys just.
I hate Troy Aikman's face. I don't want to listen to him.
I hate his face.
Put it this way: with how much I dislike him, I still somehow get stuck with him and Joe Buck.
I like that Mike has taken the idea here of if you only win one game, make sure you beat Navy and applied it to his professional football team.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, look, the Red Sox going to be terrible. They beat the hell out of the Yankees this year. I'm okay with that.
That's all we need.
Both teams are awful. Yeah, that's all I need.
Right.
But
that's all you need.
I was saying to Ryan before we got started, it is really weird to be a fan of what is almost inarguably the best team in football right now.
It is the best team in football.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the Eagles are really good. Jalen Hurts could be electric when he wants to be, and when
they're still flawed though. They're very flawed.
And I think it's something where if Purdy had stayed healthy last year, Philly can still win that game, but
it would have been close. It would have been closer,
significantly closer. The defense was just gassed by the end of that game. Fred Warner's a monster. He is a force of nature out there, and they are just in the position where they're supposed to be. They capitalized off mistakes and they get a little bit of luck. However many of the 40 picks Dak threw.
40. He Jameis Winston himself. He had a Jameis game.
I mean, look, interceptions are always a semi-bad metric for quarterbacks because that tip ball, receiver does something stupid. There was a couple that were just awful throws. And they have the Cowboys number right now. And when all the talking heads on the various networks, some of them have 3 letters, some of them have 4. We're all just sort of bloviating about the Cowboys again because they know it drives media and there's a bunch of irrational Cowboy fans out there. They just baptized them. I mean, that game was almost over before it started.
It was ugly. I planned on watching that game when I came back from work, and I didn't need to. I got it pretty quickly.
They're going to end up Old Yeller and Dak before they're done.
Oh man, poor Dak and his leg tattoo.
But again, go ahead, Drew.
The 49ers at the start of the season, we've now passed the threshold. At the start of the season, we kept saying, the 49ers look really good, but it's early in the season and they haven't been tested yet. We're now through enough of the season where we're starting to realize that maybe they're just that good. Maybe there's nobody who can test them to that degree, at least not that we've seen so far.
What's it like having the best team? be the fan of the best team in the NFL? Because Drew, Mark, and myself, certainly me at the bottom of the barrel here, don't know what that's like.
Hey, you guys went 15-1 one year.
Oh, that was glorious! What a glorious season!
But I mean,
tragedy.
I just pulled up the Niners schedule. They're at Cleveland, at Minnesota, home for the Bengals, at the Jags, home for the Bucs, at Seahawks, at Eagles. That's the game.
Yeah.
And then it's Seahawks, Cardinals, Ravens, Commanders, Rams. They lose maybe 2 of those games.
Maybe.
The Eagles game, that's going to be a tight game. And with the Ravens, who knows which Ravens team is showing up.
Which Ravens team shows up. It's always the problem.
It's Christmas Day at 8:00 in San Francisco.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
look, it's awesome. It's fun to watch. Brock Purdy is, he is the antidote to Tom Brady and the 6th round draft thing. Because if he wins the Super Bowl as Mr. Irrelevant, maybe we never have to hear the Tom Brady "I was drafted too low" storyline ever again.
Did you see the story? Is this real, or did I see a false story that Brock Purdy has a roommate?
No, that's true.
Is that real?
That's a true thing. Yes.
He has a roommate.
Listen, rent in San Francisco is
It's
expensive.
high.
Mr.
The
Irrelevant
rent's-
doesn't make a lot of money on that deal.
It's exactly, the rent's too damn high. In San
The
Francisco.
rent is. God bless Jimmy McMillan. What a time.
What
As
a
a noted
guy.
karate expert, that was the proudest vote I've ever cast for governor.
How could you not? Look at that guy. What's the greatest Raiders season you've ever had, Drew, in your lifetime?
None of them ended well.
Is it
Yeah,
2002? That's the one I have here listed. 11-5, lost in the Super Bowl.
No, it was
28
the
points
season
per game.
It was the season before that.
The-
It was
the
O-
Tuck
the
rule
01
season?
that ended in the Tuck rule. Like Gruden was the
Mhm.
coach. They were firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
That, or actually, you know what? No, I take it back. The 2000 season. There's only a minor difference there. The 2000 season, it's the one where the Raiders lose to the Ravens in the playoffs when Tony Saragusa falls on and injures Rich Gannon behind the play in a play that now would be roughing the passer.
Right.
Bobby Hoying almost brings the Raiders back. It gets really ugly. Anyway, the reason that one stings more is because that was the same season that the Randall Cunningham Vikings were tearing the league apart. And we were destined for a Rich Gannon Raiders, Randall Cunningham Vikings Super Bowl that would have been the greatest
awesome.
Super Bowl in the history of Super Bowls, except the Giants stole the Vikings signals and beat them 41-0 in the NFC Championship game at the same time the Saragusa fell on Rich Gannon.
Yeah.
So that season hurts more because that would have been the greatest watch of all time.
I, for one, am shocked that the Giants were a problem and made things worse for everyone.
Yeah, but again, the Giants get a pass from me forever because they defended democracy twice.
They did it twice. Yeah. They did
Tom
it twice.
Coughlin gets a pass because if you remember, they're the ones who gave us Belichick because they gave him a job.
That's true.
That's
Right. He
that's
was
true. That's a
he
good point.
got to start there. The two Bills. Got to start there. Anything else to say about the 49ers other than it's just enjoyed Christian McCaffrey? You're welcome. God damn it. My second round picks aren't really hitting on the same level as Christian McCaffrey.
Really glad we got to trade him for essentially a sack of baseballs.
Oh my God.
Look,
it's worse every day.
It's really, again, it's just bizarre that the pieces have fallen into place for the Niners like this, given the fact they basically spent the farm on Trey Lance and then just shipped him to Dallas for a 5th round pick. So haha, Trey Lance. Enjoy that beatdown. I feel bad for the kid, but at the same time, like, Brock Purdy falls in their lap. Do the two of them have a job if that doesn't happen? Like, you blow that many 1st round picks on Trey Lance, and he turns out to be not even a bust, like a non-entity. Like, you wonder if the two of them would even have a job right now, at least John Lynch. And
right.
Like the universe, you know, God loves drunks and fools, and I think it's something where they've gotten bailed out, and I'm here for it.
Everything else has worked. Just one pick. The one pick hasn't worked. But
it's how much they had to give up for it, and the fact that they did that and still are feeling the team they did. Yeah, nuts.
Yeah, that's nuts. All right, are we ready for these guys to go into our rankings system here? Let's see. I wonder where the 49ers will end up. Let's just do that. On it, I believe Mark coined the phrase in the first episode of the season. The Bills should be on a tier above the Super Bowl. What's above Super Bowl? That's where the 49ers live right now. Where do the Cowboys live, though? Are they now playoff?
No, the Cowboys, if they've proved anything, have proved that they are still capable of beating the teams they're supposed to beat. And given that most of the NFC sucks, I think that still makes them a playoff team.
I'd put them in. I can see that argument. I'd personally slot them at 2-2 just because of how good the Eagles are. And, if you're looking at the rest of
somebody has to make the NFC playoffs.
Yeah, I mean,
Somebody.
the problem is name 7 teams that are better than them in the NFC, right? So
Yeah,
like
I don't think there
San Francisco, Philly, Detroit, sure.
Mhm.
And
Seattle.
then somebody in the South and somebody in the West will win a division
Saints.
and take up a spot.
Yep.
But I don't know that there's 2 other teams that are better than them for the wild card.
I mean, the Rams at 2 and 3 are sneaky. Like
Yeah, Rams.
Mark's
Rams
always
always-
Rams.
Look,
You would be
the
very
Rams
excited. That you said that.
always bother me. Like, I don't like the Rams, and they're like, I worry about that game more than I probably should.
Mhm.
But they catch it the right way. That team has still got some talent on it. But
Flipper Anderson is not walking through that door, Mike.
Flipper. Oh, Flipper. All right. We're moving on. Next category. Off the Schneid. Classic. The Bears win one. They beat the Commanders on Thursday Night Football in a wild game. DJ Moore, I miss you. 280 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. Speaking of Flipper Anderson, it was a Flipper performance there. Didn't he have an amazing game one time? The Bears get off the Schneid. They beat the Commanders. The Commanders really, they puzzle me with how good they can look at times and how bad they can play defense at times. And how Riverboat Ron just seems lost. He's stranded on a boat. Not a sad boy boat, just a nothing boat in the middle of a river.
Future University
no
of Nebraska
oar.
coach Ron
Yeah.
Rivera.
Future
I heard
Nebraska.
that last week. I listened to that part of the pod last week, and I was nodding vociferously in agreement. There's no way Ron is not an amazing college coach. Who wouldn't want to go play for him?
I love Ron. I love
Apparently, the guy's on the Commanders.
Ron. Maybe the Commanders don't want to play for him.
Well, maybe they don't want to be on the Commanders.
But it's the the continuing Degrassi episode of the Chicago Bears evolves. DJ Moore now playing the part of the new kid in school. Just wait like 3 weeks. We're gonna find out that he's, I don't know, dealing fentanyl to the school mascot or something like something totally
He's having a
ridiculous is gonna
relationship with the
happen.
vice principal.
He's
Next week.
he's run away from home and he's living in a refrigerator box out back of the school, and he happens to be the best wide receiver in the county. Like,
Yeah.
this
He's living off
story's
throwing
not
out
over
ham
yet.
sandwiches.
Oh man, why does he miss the next game? He doesn't even show up to the next game because he's in said refrigerator.
He's in the refrigerator box. Doesn't have a clock.
But sort of coming back to the Commanders for a second.
Yeah.
The whole building's got to feel like dead man walking. Like, you have a new ownership group. Everybody hates Dan Snyder and every decision he's ever made. Like, you got to wonder how many of those guys are looking around going, I'm not going to even bother putting drapes up in the office. I mean, there's
we're out.
that the sort of Damocles is over everyone's head in that building because new ownership is going to come in and just want to disassociate as much as it humanly can from him.
Yeah. They got to take that Sean Taylor statue down.
I wouldn't be shocked if they changed the name.
That's not out of the realm of possibility. I think at
No
this
one
point.
really likes it, and it's still associated with Dan Snyder.
They said they're not going backwards, which doesn't mean they're not changing the name again. Which that would be just the ultimate.
Change it back
Dysfunction.
to Redskins.
They're not changing it back.
We changed the
My
name.
dad-
Now it's the
my dad's
Washington
theory.
D.C. Redskins.
My dad's theory at the time was that, if professional football had been more like professional wrestling when Dan Snyder put out his big thing saying, we're finally going to change the team's name, he was going to announce that they were going to be the Maryland Redskins. And
Yeah, the old wrestling. I'm here to apologize for nothing. One of those.
And then there's an
Right.
entire storyline about him with Roger Goodell's wife.
Oh, Degrassi. That means we are ready.
by the way,
Figure out where.
my dad's other theory was that Washington was going to come out and Dan Snyder was going to change the team's name to the Savages. So
Oh my god!
none of these
Don't
things
even-
seemed beyond the pale, by the way. Like, all of this seemed like a
It
viable
could be
possibility.
possible. We're making it worse. God damn it! All right, Bears We're in the Caleb Williams
We've
dad.
got winning a game does not get you out of the Caleb Williams dad.
Winning a game does not move you out of Caleb Williams
listen,
dad.
Especially because the other
now
team is in the Caleb Williams dad category.
Especially now that the Bears have won a game, like nobody's going winless this season. So there's going to be multiple teams in the Caleb.
Wait a minute. Don't say that yet. Don't say that yet.
There is still one loser.
There's still one winless team.
Is there really? Why am I blanking on it?
Yeah, well,
look at Ryan.
Look at my.
Oh yeah, of course.
My team is winless. Oh boy.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's the caveat: good, bad, or indifferent. Let's say the Panthers go winless. They're not taking Caleb Williams. They're trading that pick.
We don't have a pick. We can't take him. We don't have the pick.
No, that's true. You don't even have the pick.
We traded it.
So you can't. Carolina mathematically is eliminated from the Caleb Williams dad pool.
Yeah. So even though we would be in that category, we're a diddly poor.
I think Washington wishes they were in the Caleb Williams dad pool.
Yeah,
I think they're diddly poo.
I think
they'd love to replace Sam Howell, but they're not there yet.
Ryan, who has Carolina's pick?
Oh, the Chicago Bears do.
Chicago Bears. Because the draft could end up going Arizona, Chicago. Or some
Williams
combination there.
Is furious right now.
It's like when you used to play Madden and you could go in and like switch the player's position. Like, oh, I'm going to make Peyton Manning a punter. And you could trade like a 7th round pick for him. Like Chicago's going to have like the first 5 picks.
Yep. It's comical unless
and they're still going to screw it up.
So we're saying the Commanders are diddly poor because they don't have a chance at Caleb Williams?
I think so. Right, I don't think they're quite in the Caleb Williams category.
Caleb Williams' dad. Is he excited about the victory or not? I'm not sure. What do we think?
No, because I think that raises the specter of more teams entering the Caleb Williams dad pool.
Isn't that good, though, for him? Caleb Williams' dad has more options.
There's only one way to find this out, which is to get Caleb Williams' dad on the show.
Oh, God. We have to do that. Please come on the show, Mr. Williams. I don't know his real name. I never will. All right. Next category. Mark leaves the show because the Jaguars beat the Bills. The Bills lost like 8 off defensive starters in this game.
Oh.
It was ugly. Between the week before and this week, yikes.
Even with that, I wouldn't read too much into this. These London games are horrible, and the quality of play is usually bad. And since the Jaguars have taken up like a Las Vegas style residency there, they seem to be the only team. Like, did they even travel home in the interim?
No, they stayed.
No, they didn't. They stayed there. So
so they had an advantage already.
They were always going to be the favorite in this game, even if they weren't. Like, it just sucks for the Bills that, your margin for error here is reasonably thin with Miami at your heels, and you have to go play this crappy game.
Yeah.
Also, as a side note, what is the impetus to become a Jaguar season ticket holder? Like, what are you getting out of that, really? And how much are you paying for it relative to other season tickets?
It can't be good. It can't be good.
Maybe get some the new London Monarchs tickets.
The London Monarchs. Everyone made that team in Madden.
You'll have right of first refusal to fly to London every other Sunday.
Oh, God. Poor Jacksonville. Do you think Jacksonville's for real, Mike?
No. I don't.
No, they're firmly in the always 2-2 category.
I think they aren't this year. I think given the makeup of that division and, the Texans, CJ Stroud seems to be awesome, but they're still the Texans.
Ryan, how do you feel about CJ Stroud?
I'll get there in a minute.
Oh, I know you will.
I bet you it's the inverse of how I feel about Mac Jones.
Pretty much.
But
actually, I'll get there, but there's stories coming out about that, which I'll touch on in the ballad.
Yes. I think Jacksonville is a couple years away. And I think, Peterson is not a bad coach. The man won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles.
He did.
And I think Trevor Lawrence is good. I think once they get a little bit better line play, look, this is an organization that damn near went to the Super Bowl with, what was his name?
Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles. That's right.
Bortles.
That's right. So no, right now, but I think there's pieces there that in 1 to 3 years, I think they're going to kind of come back to where they were a few years ago, where they were, or more than a few years now, where they were a legitimate threat in the AFC.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this show, but The Good Place. Do you ever see The Good Place? They had a great bit about the Jaguars in there. There was one guy who, if you haven't seen the show, it's a bunch of people who die and go to heaven. But it's not right.
With Ted Danson.
With Ted Danson. But there's one guy in there who's a Jaguars fan, and he just keeps going, Bortles! And like throwing things. And he got in trouble for yelling out Bortles and throwing a Molotov cocktail into that's how he died. He threw a Molotov cocktail into like a boat and it exploded, and he yelled out Bortles. And then some things happen and he finds out Bortles has been cut at one point during the show. And he's just so sad. He's a sad boy. It's a very funny bit.
I've never asked this. As a Panthers fan, do you feel any like spiritual kinship with the Jags because they came into the league at the same time?
Yeah, I guess. I don't dislike that picture is incredible. I do feel a kinship with. I don't hate the Jags.
Mhm.
I was really excited about having that 196 Super Bowl that didn't happen and never was going to
Mhm.
happen, where the Jags were in the AFC Championship and we were in the NFC Championship. It's like, this is great. Let's do it together. Also, they
Ricky
murdered.
Ball.
Dom Capers is the best with his painted on hair. Now, they also destroyed Dan Marino and
Yes,
Jimmy
and
Johnson.
Jimmy
So
Johnson.
you can't say no to that. That was great. So yeah, I have a
But
kinship to them.
I'm
I
now
like
picturing Dom
Jimmy
Capers
Smith.
like I'm now picturing Dom Capers like Gary Oldman in The Fifth Element. That'll last until either
Yes,
of you wins
yeah.
a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
'Cause
then
it's
we'll hate each
taken-
other.
As a Mets fan, the Mets fan has always had a kinship with the Padres because they were the only two franchises in Major League Baseball who'd never thrown a no-hitter. Literally, like the day after Johan Santana threw one for the Mets, it was like, ha ha ha, F you, Padres.
I'll get there. All right. That means we gotta rank these guys. I'm curious about this one. This was tough. This is tough because where the Bills fall? They were a Super Bowl. Are they still a Super
think
Bowl?
they're a Super Bowl. I still
All right.
think so. It's
Okay.
It's not college football. You can lose more than 2 games and be okay.
Yeah, just a little hiccup there. Okay.
In
I guess the
mitigating
red flag would be
circumstances.
the injuries. Like, do those injuries linger? Do they hang around?
Right. It's a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
To really good players. I mean, their top like 3 guys are injured for
And-
maybe the whole year.
And Jacksonville to me is firmly in the always 2-2 category.
Okay. All right.
I mean,
Yeah.
they do get a bounce back game against the Giants next week.
Yeah, they'll win that, and then they'll
But
be looking
that
real
is-
good.
I mean, they've got to play the Eagles. They've got to play the Chiefs. They've got to play the Bucks. They're going to play the Cowboys. They're going to play the Dolphins again. Like, that's not the easiest schedule.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, they do
This-
have to play the Broncos, but
that's a win. This category is in honor of the wrestler Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, who calls other wrestlers he doesn't think are on his level mid. You're mid. That's what this category is, mid. The Falcons beat the Texans in mid. This is basically forever 2-2. And these teams are forever 2-2.
I would put the Falcons as low as diddly poo only because the pieces they have, they can't seem to get organized.
Even after a win, you're still going to put them in
Even
diddly poo?
after a win, they're still diddly poo.
Wow.
Like, where is Kyle Pitts? They're insisting on Desmond Ritter. I don't even know who their backup is, but it's apparently somebody worse than Desmond Ritter.
Heineke. It's Heineke.
and behind
Like
him is
that-
Logan Woodside. I had to go look it up because I couldn't tell you who the Falcons quarterback was. It is week. This is almost week 6.
They're
I
not-
can't- I can't tell you. Other than, Kyle Pitts wasting his life away in Atlanta, I can't tell you who plays for the Falcons.
Like they have enough talent on offense and defense to keep them competitive in enough games in a crappy division where they're not going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. So Caleb Williams' dad doesn't have to worry about like making friends with Little John or whatever, or
But I
some
feel like-
equally dated reference to it, the Atlanta rap scene.
I feel like he would be upset about that. Like, this is a good spot. We've got Bijan Robinson.
Robinson, right, and Kyle Pitts, and a
Kyle-
decent defense.
Do you still have Kyle Pitts? Does Caleb Williams' dad ask about that? Where is he?
But I'm looking at Atlanta's schedule: Washington, Tampa, Tennessee, Minnesota, Arizona, New Orleans, the Jets, Tampa, Carolina again, Indianapolis, Chicago, and New Orleans.
Yeah,
That's-
Very winnable.
That is a very winnable schedule.
they're going to fall ass over tea kettle into at least 4 more wins.
yeah, at least.
They could easily end up like with 10 wins.
That's going to be.
already got
Desmond
three.
Ritter is still the quarterback.
Look, they got to play. Look, they got Chicago and the Jets. They've got Tennessee,
Panthers, they're going to beat them.
Minnesota,
That's 3.
Arizona. There's 5,
Wow.
and they're at 8. Like it's unlikely, but I don't think it's like crossing off the charts.
Okay. What about the Texans here? They stumble a little bit, but their team's not very good. So
This sounds like I'm damning with faint praise, but I'll give the Texans a lot of credit and move them into the always 2-2 category,
oh my god,
which is 2 full grades up from where we had them at the beginning of the season.
that's quite an upgrade. All right, let's do this now. Let's get them in position here. The Texans, Texans, going to always 2-2. The Falcons. They're diddly poo or they're
I
playoff.
still think they're diddly poo. Because even if they make the playoff, they're not going to last.
Yeah,
They
Okay.
would have to get by a lot of the always 2-2 teams to make the playoff. And by the way, there are a lot more always 2-2 teams coming.
We have a lot more to go on that list.
parody.
Also in mid, the Colts and the Titans. The Titans lose every other week. Titans, here we go again. They lose this one to the Colts. The Gardner fighting Minshew's pull it off again.
I don't. The larger concern for me is I don't understand why the Titans would ever run Derrick Henry like less than 20 times in a game.
I don't.
Again,
get
he
that.
goes through this whole game with like 10 carries and they stopped. And it's not like they were losing by so much that wasn't still a viable game plan.
No, it was very close.
Yeah.
It makes zero sense. You think even a year or two ago, like playing the Texans or playing the Titans was terrifying. Like Derrick Henry was going to run for 270 yards all over you with 4 touchdowns, and you were going to die. And now it's like, in Ryan Tannehill we trust. Why?
The game was 23-16. I mean, we're not talking about a blowout here.
If you're the University of Miami, you lose that game.
Derrick Henry had 13 carries. That's it. 13 carries. Wow. Yeah, every other week, Titans, they look great and they lose a stupid game. So what does that mean for their always 2-2? Is that
That sounds like they are the definition of always 2-2.
they are literally the always 2-2. The Titans are always 2-2, and the Colts are also always 2-2, or they're diddly poor since Richardson's out now.
I don't know. They seem to be just as good with Minshew. It doesn't seem to matter who's taking the ball from under center. Nobody takes
like
the ball from
how-
under center anymore. Who takes the
Right,
ball from the
that's true.
shotgun?
We also have to talk about Jonathan Taylor re-signed, which seems bizarre. Just a 3-year deal, re-signed and came back and played, but they didn't use him. They used Zach Moss.
You remember that Simpsons episode where Dr. Burns is taking Mr. Burns is taking whatever it is, and Homer gets forgiven all of his crimes, and he tells like everybody, if you need a favor from Burns, now's the time because he's doped up or dying or something. And Hans Moleman goes in with a push broom, and he thinks he's the elf from Lucky Charms or whatever. Like, Taylor must have caught Jim Irsay on just the right day.
The exact right day.
Jim had just enough speed for this to work.
Just enough speed.
Just enough.
What's-
Not too much. Not too much.
What's the proper amount of meth? Who knows? I don't. But good for him.
But yeah, the Colts seem like an always 2-2 team because they're good in spite of themselves. And, you know, if you have two quarterbacks, you're not supposed to have any quarterbacks, but somehow they're equally good with both of their shitty quarterbacks.
Fighting Minshew's. Keep going. Steelers in mid over Ravens. Somehow the Ravens pissed this one away. You getting the good Ravens or the bad Ravens? Turns out you're getting the bad ones this week. Baby Hands was absolutely awful until like
Awful.
the last quarter. Just enough to get him by. Jalen Warren's pretty good.
Yeah.
You need to use him a lot more.
Speaking
Man
of the
alive.
Simpsons, to paraphrase them, we elected the wrong Harbaugh.
Man. Zay Flowers had a rough game. He's looked pretty
Oh,
good.
yeah.
But he had a rough game. Beckham didn't do a thing. He has done nothing all season. Absolutely nothing.
I hate to say it, but he's functionally done.
He is done. Is this a blip for the Ravens? I feel like they're a playoff team still, but maybe I'm wrong.
Like,
I mean, go ahead, Drew.
it's again, I'm going to put in jeopardy everything this podcast hold dear by invoking R. Kelly and Real Talk, but time for Real Talk. Like, it's been 3 years now of us thinking this is it for the Ravens. This is when they're injury free and they're going to put it all together and they're going to be great. And it's just, I'm starting to realize it's never going to be. It is never going to be. They are an always 2-2 team until they prove otherwise.
Are the Steelers any better?
No.
Equal.
Although, again, for all the hype of Micah Parsons, and he deserves it because Micah Parsons is one of the greatest defensive players in football. TJ Watt might still be the greatest defensive player in football.
Yeah.
He is a wrecking ball.
He was great in this one. He even
It's very
punched
rare
somebody
when
in the face.
It's very rare when there's a defensive player who can win you football games, but that's who TJ Watt is.
Yeah.
Well,
He
and
did that.
I think just winning that game is Mike Tomlin. Like he's a really, really good football coach.
Really good coach. He's got the juice now.
Look, that division is not good. I mean, you have Pittsburgh at 3-2, Baltimore at 3-2, Cleveland at 2-2, and the Bengals at 2-3. The Bengals just seem to be a dumpster fire this year.
Yeah.
Like they had the post Super Bowl hangover a year late, which is a very Cincinnati thing to do. But like even with whichever oddly named Midwestern Southern quarterback who's going to be playing for Pittsburgh, they're still in it. Like they could still legitimately win that division, which is sad.
How? They
don't-
are. You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just like, how is this possible?
I don't think they will. I still think Baltimore wins it, but you have the same record, and you have you already took the first game out of the series. That's
that's a big deal.
Almost a third of the way through the season.
But when you look at Baby Hand's stat line in the first 3 quarters, and he's like 3 for 18 passing, how is this going to work? Like, how is this sustainable?
Well, think about, hey, Roethlisberger, his first season, they were 15-1. He threw the ball 10 times in a game.
It's a game. Yeah.
He was 7 for 10. All right, great.
Right.
Like it could be, they could get into a scenario where the rest of the team is playing well enough, the running game's going well enough, where like they don't need Baby Hands to do a hell of a lot.
They really need to stop him.
The rattle, he's good.
Just give him a rattle. One phenomenon that's been going on in the show is every week his hands get smaller and smaller on the show. Last week he was throwing an egg. He could just fit an egg in his hand.
He could just barely throw an egg last week.
Now it's a penny. He can barely hold a penny.
He's not the Macho Man.
He's not. All right, one more mid.
This Macho Man.
One more mid is Bengals come to life and beat the Cardinals, but it's the Cardinals too. Jamar Chase, Elves got an elf. He got out there and did his thing. We got beat by some elves. It's the funniest quote of the season. Still, he's on top in that. It was his first touchdown, but he got 3 this time in this game. Also, last week, a great quote of "I'm always fucking open." When they asked if he was open, I'm always open.
You gotta love that kind of commitment.
You gotta love it. But they beat the Cardinals and looked more normal than they have. Bengals are a mess. They're a mess.
Yeah, like do they right the ship? It's
Well, this was there's Cardinals. Come on, how much stock do we put in a Cardinals
very,
victory?
very little. But
the Bengals have plummeted all the way to the always 2-2 tier. That's just who they are this season.
Yeah, and they've got a brutal schedule. It's
look at this.
Niners,
it's going to get worse.
Texans, Ravens, Steelers, Jags, Colts, Vikings, Steelers, Chiefs, Browns.
Not good.
I don't think it's happening.
My opinion remains unchanged. The Bengals should just pack it in, use all of their picks on offensive linemen, and try again next year.
All right. I don't think it's a bad plan. Are the Cardinals firmly planted in the Caleb Williams dad sweepstakes?
They are the progenitor of the Caleb Williams dad division. They're how this whole thing came to be. They can't move from it. They could win 10 games in a row and they're still in the Caleb Williams dad division.
They started all this.
They did.
Just because, my first time here on the pod, I could never understand why anyone thought Kyler Murray was going to work. Like, that alone should have gotten everyone involved in the building fired.
It basically did. Everyone's gone, right? From that regime.
Except for him with a large pile of money.
Yeah, hey, he's the only one left.
When you can take a short quarterback from Oklahoma, you got to do it. Just ask Baker Mayfield and Josh Heupel. And, well, Sam Bradford was tall, but the principle remains.
All right. Moving on to the next category.
3 of those guys won the Heisman Trophy. Anyway.
Oh, geez.
As did one Tim Tebow, my friend.
That's a whole different thing, though. That's a whole different thing.
Who owns a playoff win?
He does.
Against the Steelers. All right. It's time. Buckle up. The ballad. The 2023 Carolina Panthers. We are 0-5. We were defeated by the Lions, which, you know what? The Lions are good. The Lions are good. They should beat us. It was ugly. Then junk time came around, and Bryce Young threw 3 touchdowns in junk time. So should I be optimistic that he threw 3 touchdowns in junk time, or should I be really upset because all the coaches basically said the owner interfered and we didn't want this guy this week? The stories are floating around that they actually wanted C.J. Stroud, including a video of Josh McCown going up to C.J. Stroud and going, well, when you get to Carolina, we'll find a good basketball court to play one-on-one. That's the quarterback's coach saying that.
Is that like the end of that Rocky movie where Apollo and Rocky have the rematch and we never find out how it ends?
A freeze frame?
Yeah.
It's a bad week. It's 5 weeks and we're already throwing this guy under the bus.
Ryan, this is not even just a solely Panthers problem. One thing that continues to baffle me, although I think I have the answer to this question, is every time one of these billionaires buys a team, they assume that because I've made money in some other field, I can obviously do it here. And like, if you want to control the concessions and the tickets and the advertising, fine, whatever. Like, in what universe does being good at business make you qualified to pick an NFL starting quarterback? Like, these billion, it's the Jerry Jones problem.
These are
like,
these are not people who are used to being told no.
Well, correct, but they're also smart, and you'd think that they would, a man has got to know his limitations. It's like, put it this way: if all of a sudden I wake up tomorrow and I've got enough money to buy an NFL team, I'm going to buy an NFL team, and then I'm just going to let the people run it who know what they're doing. Like, I'm not going to be down on the sideline and be like, hey, you should have run a slant here.
Here's who you should draft.
If you ask around, the popular inside story is that the New York Knicks are bad because James Dolan thinks he knows basketball. The New York Rangers are good because James Dolan knows he doesn't know hockey.
And
he lets his hockey people run his hockey team.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Oh man, yeah, it's bad. I mean, he was a partial owner of the Steelers, so he probably thinks like, I won as a Steelers owner, but how much work did he
How
actually
much
put
work
in?
did you actually do? And by
Yeah.
the way, how much work did the actual owner of the Steelers do?
None. It's all Mike Tomlin. Oh man, 42-24. 14 of those points came in the fourth quarter, though, when the Lions gave up.
That's crunch
So-
time.
That's junk time for you. It's not looking good. I guess I can say 3 touchdowns is positive, better than 0.
Better than if you hadn't thrown 3 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Better than throwing 3 picks.
So that means the Panthers are firmly planted in diddly poo because
Well,
they can't
hold
get
on.
Caleb Williams' dad.
No, that's true. They're mathematically eliminated.
Yeah, they're mathematically eliminated because they traded that pick away.
Yeah, so yeah,
and
they are firmly in the diddly poo category.
I don't think there's a win in sight until they face the Bears, which is a couple weeks from now, I believe. They face the Bears at some point, which would be just rubbing salt in the wound if the fucking Bears beat us. They take all of our picks, they're terrible, and then they beat us. That would be terrible. They are playing, let's see, we have Miami next week, so that's not going to be good. We get to play, we have a bye week, then we get to play straight up against CJ Stroud. That's going to be good. Then we got the Colts, then Chicago. So week 10, I'm looking at week 10 as maybe our first win. Maybe. All right, so they're diddly pooers. Where do the Lions fit? Are they a Super
The
Bowl
Lion-
contender?
No, but I think they're firmly a playoff team.
Agreed.
We're far enough along in the season now where they've proven that.
Okay, I'm good with that. They were good. Good for the Lions, America's team. All right. This category is bar is closed. Bar is officially closed. Brian Daboll. He can't go to bar anymore and get his 17 Miller Lights because he's
Tina's
trashed the
broken up
place.
with him.
Tina broke up with him.
It's a,
Two
it's
cigarettes.
a terrible. It's a terrible country song. Tina broke up with him. His bar is closed.
His jet ski sunk.
down.
His ski sunk.
Sunk.
No, he is the protagonist of the lesser catalog of Bruce Springsteen.
Okay. A little lesser catalog. The
Well,
B
that's
sides
something-
of Springsteen.
Yeah, it's the B-side stuff he made in the 90s that no one's really listening to.
God, Mike probably knows this. I hate Bruce Springsteen. That's a story we won't get into, but I hate Bruce Springsteen. I got nothing against the man personally. I hate his music.
Oh boy.
And now what few fans we had will go away.
Oh, poor fans.
Don't worry, we're gonna crap on the Jets later. That'll flush the rest of them out.
We'll get them back. I don't know what to say here. The Giants just got smashed by the Dolphins. The Dolphins are too fast. The Giants don't have enough players. They look tired. Jones got his neck broken
Well,
or
and
injured.
I think the Giants are a classic example of what happens when you have an ownership that holds on to like a GM or like sort of a faded vision for way too long. The Giants haven't been that team hell since not even since Eli left, since before Eli left.
Right, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's something where Gettleman just has handicapped this team for like the next at least 5 years. They're going to be terrible. They're going to pay a boatload of money to Daniel Jones to go away. And they're still going to be left with like, all right, who's here?
Unless, bear with me now, unless they end up in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes,
I have them in there now.
which Caleb Williams' dad would be thrilled with. Because if you're the Giants, okay, you're paying Danny Dimes $40 million a year. But if you get your hands on Caleb Williams, I don't know what the current rookie pay scale is, but using round numbers, let's say you're paying him $10 million a year. You're still spending a total of $50 million on your quarterback position, which is less than, say, the Chiefs or the Browns or some of the other teams. Not that this puts you at a competitive advantage, but like the Giants taking Caleb Williams is not crazy if they end up with the first pick.
What I want to happen is for Caleb Williams' dad to go heel and refuse to play for the Giants.
Yes.
Get him traded to the Chargers.
The reverse.
The
The
reverse.
reverse Eli. We need like order restored to the universe.
The reverse Eli. Or saying no to the Broncos to go to the Colts. That would also be fun.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it, Sean Payton, although I don't think he would say that. All right, so the Giants are firmly planted in the Caleb Williams dad sweepstakes now, which is crazy to think. We did not think that was possible.
No,
we
we
thought
did
they
not.
were either a playoff team or a just misser, but
I was not on the
Dolphins.
early shows. I thought the Giants would be terrible from the beginning.
The internet doesn't forget. All right, Dolphins. Where do the Dolphins fit?
As crazy as it sounds, the Dolphins are a Super Bowl contender.
They have to be, right?
It's their defense isn't great, but they score so many points. They're hard to keep up with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, their entire season is going to be based on whether or not Tua is made of glass this year or not.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
I mean, pretty much he hasn't been touched. I mean, maybe a little bit here and there, but
But there's gonna be a tight game. It's gonna be in December. They're gonna be playing
happen.
not in South Florida, and he's gonna have to go out and like scramble for 4 or 5 yards, and he gets clocked, and he gets
he's-
and
gonna
there
happen.
goes a knee. There goes his crack,
Well, his
break the
brain.
collarbone.
There goes his brain. That's the concern with Tua.
That
that's
too.
true. All right. Next category is oh my, which is the
Oh,
Saints. Oh my. The Saints 34-0 against the Patriots, which means what is the score the Patriots have faced over the last 2 weeks? Like 65-3 in 2 weeks. This is glorious.
I feel
Oh
like
my.
it doesn't matter how bad the Raiders are. This is the thing I'm enjoying the most this season. Like I feel like Homer in the dream where he's prancing through the chocolate land. Like that's how I feel watching the Patriots lose.
Wow,
Awesome.
chocolate half off.
Amazing.
Look,
But there's a problem here. We're about to see it.
is there a word for something greater than Schadenfreude? Like Schadenfreude? I don't know. My
Well,
German is nicht so gut.
The Germans are great on compound words, so it would just be like big Schadenfreude, so just grossen Schadenfreude. That would be that's
Then
the
I have
step
a
up.
then I have a gross oh god, I can't even say it. Forget it. It's too late in the day.
You got a shot in front of. All right. Not much to say here. The Saints are a playoff team or a Super Bowl contender?
I think the Saints are always 2-2.
2-2.
I think
No
they are.
way!
Yes.
They're certainly not a Super Bowl
Don't-
contender.
Oh my God!
Don't-
They got to
don't-
be a playoff team.
No, don't give them extra credit for being in a shitty division. There's going to be always 2-2 teams that make it to the playoffs, but not by virtue of their own greatness, but because everyone else in their division spits the bit.
I'm fascinated by this.
The Saints in any other division in football, with the possible exception of the AFC South, would not even be in playoff consideration. And I love Derek Carr, and I am a Derek Carr apologist, and I
Wow.
chuckle with glee every time they put the Mormon bulldozer in at quarterback. But this is who they are.
2-2. I'm unfortunately going to have to do this.
No,
Which
no,
is
you
scary.
can't. You can't, because if there's a Justin loving God, that won't happen.
But here's the thing.
They're
You
bad.
know damn well, and this actually gets to a point that I just wanted to make. Even if Belichick's sitting there with the first overall pick, you know he's going to trade it. Okay, he's
Yeah.
going to take that pick.
Yep.
And I was looking something up. If I can find
He's,
it.
he's
It's on my
going to
phone.
trade it for every pick in the third round.
Yeah, but here's
He's
the
just
thing.
going to take a bunch
Tell
of
me.
lacrosse transfers.
Yes. A bunch
The
of
last- The last New England Patriot who was drafted, who's been useful at all.
The last guy who's still on the team?
Yeah. The last
mean,
guy who was just
Matthew Judon? Was he drafted?
Judon's legit.
Judon?
But I mean, I'm thinking
Christian
No,
Gonzalez was a good pick, right? We think. We got
I mean,
hurt.
listen, put him in the Caleb Williams dad sweepstakes. Caleb Williams' dad would be thrilled.
He's
I'm pretty
excited.
sure, much like the Chinese government's list of approved teams for Yijian Lan, I'm pretty sure Caleb Williams' dad will be thrilled if Caleb Williams ended up with the
Yijian Lan.
Patriots. Listen, anytime you can get the chairman into the show,
This is the second time he's been referenced on this show, which is great.
see what happens.
which is
when you make
ironic
it a
because right
regular
now
on
I'm
this
Winnie
show.
the Poohing this show.
Oh.
No,
my
this
God.
is, I think what you're seeing with the Patriots is, well, besides justice, is just the result of Bill Belichick being a really terrible GM. Like, he's just not good at it. And they're never going to fire him. That's never going to happen. But at the same time,
no,
you
can't.
They'll
We're not
arrange
going to ask him to step away.
arrange a classy exit for him because Bob Kraft, kind of sort of class. There's no way he goes out in anything other than that scenario. But I think it's closer than you think. I honestly could see him being out after this year.
He is also legitimately approaching 70 years old if he's not there already.
Correct.
It's getting to be time.
And also, not that I want to, inflate Tom Brady's ego any, but the more this goes on, the more it looks like it was really, Tom was the key component there.
Pretty obvious, yeah. Pretty obvious to me. All right, moving on. Eagles fly. The Eagles go to 5-0. They beat Mark's Rams. It was a little bit close. Mark also adopted the Commanders last week. I think he's regretting that now.
And apparently the Bears at one point.
Did he? My Bears.
I think after they won, he was like, Bears, look at them.
Yes. Like, what happened to your team, Mark? No, my Bears are great. Oh, boy. Anyway, the Eagles are the most flawed 5-0 team I can think of in a while, except for the Vikings last year. They're better than that, but they're flawed. It's still
the Eagles are ironically parallel to the University of Georgia, which is also undefeated but flawed, because half of the Eagles roster came from Georgia.
Right, they're already on Georgia. They already come from Georgia.
But they're still, to me, they're still a Super Bowl contender until proven otherwise.
All right,
you can't take a team that's gone through a third of the season undefeated and knock them down a peg.
That's true. They don't look the same to me. Maybe I'm wrong. What do you think? Do you think they look flawed still?
They do look flawed, but nobody's been able to exploit it yet.
Yeah, they don't look like the team from even a year or two ago, where they were legitimately it looks like they were firing on all cylinders. They win sloppy sometimes, and that's an important trait in the league, but they don't feel the same.
Definitely not.
Boy, I see a lot more 2-2 teams coming up.
Do we put the Rams in the 2-2?
The Rams are always 2-2.
Oh boy. Nobody's making the playoffs this year.
Well, hold on. Nobody's going to deserve to make the playoffs. That's a separate issue.
Yes.
Nobody will deserve it. All right. Only one game in this category this week. It's usually not just one, but what? The Jets take down the Broncos with Zach Wilson. I guess maybe it's not a surprise. Maybe it's not a surprising finish that the Jets took out the Sad Boys. They need to be renamed the Sad Boys.
My brother and I were talking about this game, and we're of the same opinion, which is, and my brother is a Jets fan, which is beating Denver is not a high hurdle to clear. But the way in which they beat them does lend some credence to the idea that so long as Zach Wilson is not abjectly terrible, their defense will keep them competitive in close games.
Yeah. Yes.
Two things.
Breece Hall was good.
Breece Hall was dynamite.
Two things about the Jets. One, you will not convince me otherwise that this franchise is not cursed because of some unspeakable things that Joe Namath has done that will most likely come out after his death. And until that happens, the Jets will be cursed. And secondly, again, I've heard this buzz a little bit. I'm sure it's bombing around media. The Jets make a play for Kirk Cousins?
I've heard that too. The trade deadline's fast approaching. It wouldn't be crazy.
Well, I mean, Minnesota, he's a free agent. Does he want to go play for the Jets? Because he's got a no-trade clause. So, I mean, there's advantages to the Jets, but then the problem is, does Aaron Rodgers come back?
Yeah. To me, it makes sense if you're the Jets because Cousins is on the last year of his deal. So you're going to pay him for half of a season and let him walk because you're already all in on the Rodgers deal. And so, you're not really sweating those draft picks because you were prepared to give them away to get Rodgers in the first place.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
like-
sort of a no-lose deal. And really the question is, does Minnesota have any intent of re-signing Cousins, which it appears right now they don't. And even with that, they could pull like, one of those Ricky Henderson loans like the Blue Jays did from the Athletics all those years ago. Just go get it back in the offseason.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, if you're the Vikings, why not? Like, your season's over. Justin Jefferson's gone, I think, for at least 4 weeks. So at what point do you look at it and go, we'll get something for nothing, and
Yeah.
we'll end up with a better draft pick on the back end? And, for the Jets, the Jets defense is really good.
Yeah,
They're
it's
good.
really good.
It's really good. Like, again, as a Niners fan, half the AFC East coaching staff used to be the coaching staff for my team.
Right.
McDaniel in Miami and Saleh in the Jets, and they're good coaches. That Jets defense is good. Like, they won a game with Zach Wilson.
They've won
They
two
almost
games
beat the
with
Chiefs.
Zach Wilson.
They almost beat
Right.
the Chiefs, and
Yeah.
Where does that leave the Jets on this category?
The Jets are diddly poo. Their defense will win them a couple more games. They're not bad enough to where Caleb Williams' dad is concerned and making phone calls.
if they
Although
make
Caleb Williams, he would be on the approved Ejon Lon team list for Caleb Williams. The Jets would.
well, and here's if they make the trade, the Jets season gets remarkably more interesting.
True.
They go up to 2-2. At
I mean,
least.
that deal makes so much sense that we know it's not going to
That
happen,
it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's a who says no deal. That means everybody says no.
because the Vikings are going to think, oh, we can get somebody else to give us something for it. Like, what other team who has a legitimate playoff shot is in the market for a quarterback at this right now?
Hmm.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting. I hope it happens.
Me too.
Kirk
The
Cousins
most-
to Tampa.
I love it. The most interesting team in the NFL, maybe the Broncos, who belong in the Caleb Williams dad sweepstakes.
Alarm bells are going off at Caleb Williams' dad house.
Is he excited or is he upset? I mean, he gets Sean Payton.
I think he would be okay with that. Denver's
I-
got some
I do
pieces.
too.
Assuming it all comes down to, does Denver trade all of their pieces before Halloween Day? If they trade Sutton and they trade Judy and they start moving more defensive pieces, then Caleb Williams' dad is going to send off fire alarms. But
He's gonna be mad.
if they keep those guys and they keep Sean Payton and the situation is worth it, then I think that's an exciting place for Caleb Williams' dad.
That's a very interesting sentence you just said. If they keep Sean Payton, is that really a possibility in your mind that they would fire Sean Payton?
I think it's more up to him than them. He could get so fed up. And,
Okay.
it may come down to, does Russ say he's coming back or not? Because the two of them squabble like old ladies at the grocery store.
That's true.
That's because
Sure.
Russ Wilson is terrible. Look,
That's
I
true.
had to watch him again as a Niners fan. I had to watch too many games with him and the damn Seahawks. I hate Russ Wilson, and his purgatory in Denver is giving me great joy. And I just they gave him a boatload of money.
So much
Like,
money.
At what point, unless your last name is like Rogers or Manning, and even the Manning one was suspect for Denver, they got a Super Bowl out of it. At least. But like, how do you give a quarterback that late in his career that kind of money? And
I don't know.
it makes me want to give praise to Pete Carroll.
Which
Can't
is
do
hurt.
that on this show. That's
You
not
can't
allowed.
do that.
Look,
Mark would be upset. Mark would be mad.
I know.
Mark
I'm gonna have
would fly
to
back from slashing tires in London
I'm gonna have
Slash
to,
your tires.
and slash your tires.
I'm gonna go have to take a shower after that comment.
You feel dirty?
A little, yeah. Not as dirty as his USC, but still.
Nothing ever happened there. He left just in time. All right, one more game, which was the Chiefs outlasting the Vikings. No more Justin Jefferson for a few weeks. Yeah, I don't know. The Chiefs it was like a cat playing with a dead mouse here.
There's nothing that happened in this game that we didn't expect was going to happen in this game.
So we firmly continue to put the Chiefs in Super Bowl.
Yes.
So
Even though they still got some problems.
yeah, but here's the thing. I think the Chiefs are basically doing the Kawhi Leonard of the NFL.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Do we really have to try that hard against the Broncos or any of these other teams? Like, you give Andy Reid the different Denny's menu. Let him call it, just keep yelling moves over my hammy, and it's a vanilla game. Like, I think it's something where they got a bunch of stuff in the back pocket for when it's going to matter, and they're just not going to break that stuff out in week 5 against a bunch of chuds.
Besides, clearly, Andy Reid wasn't even at the game. Andy Reid was flying back after coaching Miami on Saturday.
Oh God.
Given their clock management problem.
Oh God.
Look,
I haven't gotten to it yet. There's so much to say.
Drew and I have had this conversation a million times. You can pay me $175,000 a year. I will stand next to Andy Reid and tell him when it's time to take a timeout. It's easy. I played enough Madden. I look at
Andy Reid needs a timeout coach like college coaches get back coaches, which is just somebody on the strength staff who you pay to grab you by the belt loop and haul you back behind the sideline. That's what Andy Reid needs.
I mean, that guy's making a lot more money if he has to haul Andy Reid back from the sideline, first of all. And I'm a large man, so I can say
I
have you seen
my forklift certification.
Have you seen strength and conditioning coaches? These are guys that have spiral notebooks in their office that are just saying protein on the front of them. Like, these dudes are not like you and me.
All right, where does that leave the Vikings? In
Always
Caleb
2-2.
Williams' dad?
No, the Vikings are always 2-2. They're always 2-2 because they still
Even
play
though
the Bears
they've
the Packers
lost it.
twice.
Oh boy. Okay.
They could move down. You could convince me the Vikings are diddly poo. I don't think they're in Caleb Williams' dad territory yet.
No, but they're
Would Caleb Williams' dad be okay with the Vikings?
Ooh, yes, if
'Cause of
Jefferson is healthy. Yes. Otherwise, no.
No.
Okay.
I mean, listen, Ejon Lon ended up in Milwaukee. So maybe that's where he ends up when all this is said and done.
We need a little counter on the bottom of Jean Leon references for this episode. It's a little ding on the corner of his face. That would be great. All right. There are 4 teams that were on bye. We can rank them right now. The Browns.
Always 2-2.
Oh, my God. What a category.
Tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong.
There's a lot of parity in the league.
They love it. The NFL loves it. Well, we know where the Chargers belong.
They should be a playoff team.
But they're not.
But there's one conspicuous reason why they're not.
They're not. The category is literally their own category. How can they be above it?
The analytics say they should be a playoff team.
The analytics say we should go for it on our own 30-yard line every week. It's fine. Our defense will figure it out. Oh boy, where do the Bucks fall? Always 2-2 or diddly poo?
I think the Bucks, by virtue of a shitty division, are always 2-2.
Oh my God!
I mean, listen, half their division is listed below them. I don't even know. And the other team in that division is also in the always 2-2 category. And frankly, like the Bucks, for having an under-talented roster, they've been okay this year.
They're overachieving. Where does that leave the Seahawks, the last team on bye?
I also want them in always 2-2, but I think you'll shout me out of the room if I say that, so I'm not going to.
I don't think they can.
Somebody else.
They have to be
the Seahawks.
I think they have to be playoff.
Ugh,
Mike, do you have an opinion?
I mean,
I don't.
Okay.
Like, I
I don't want to see them in the playoffs.
What is going on here?
Look, they're what, 3 and something? They won 3 games, but like nothing about them really stands out to me. Okay. They seem like a very vanilla team. I mean, it's Geno Smith, for God's sake.
Yes, that's true.
And look, good for Geno. Like, I'm, getting out of New York and having some success somewhere, good for him. He seemed like not the worst dude in the universe. But I think they're kind of in between that 2-2 in playoffs. I think you got to see, another couple.
We need another category here.
How do we?
The Seattle Steamer.
No. I'm going to throw this out there without context. Is there any team from playoffs or diddly poo that we feel like is a borderline team that could move into always 2-2?
I feel like
because we are one short of having literally half the league in the 2-2 category, which
you could.
was kind of the point of this, and that's sort of what I want. But
I feel like I think we're too low on the Falcons. I think we're too low on the. If we're on anybody in Diddley Poo moves up, I think the Falcons.
I was going to say Washington, but you could sell me on the Falcons.
I think the Falcons, based on what you said, Mike, the schedule, I think they can move up around. Maybe the Commanders.
Can we move the Cowboys down?
No, I still don't think you could. All right, you know what? I'm rather than have to resort the whole thing an hour and 15 minutes in, I'm going to say let's leave it as it is.
Okay, this is where we're landing. Only 5 teams can win the Super Bowl, which is what we said last week. So we're sticking with that. And then there's 2 maybes in the playoffs. And then everybody else. And then the most important thing of this entire exercise is who's Caleb Williams' dad picking at the bottom here?
I still love how we have only 7 playoff teams when there's 8 divisions.
I was just thinking that too.
We don't even have necessarily, and we have 2 teams in the same division, so they can't be division winners. There's multiple division winners we are leaving out of this equation.
Yes, absolutely.
Wait, hold on. I got to do the math quick. 1, 2, 3. Yes, the entire AFC North is always 2-2.
Well, that sort of fits.
And the entire AFC South. We've done well, gentlemen.
I love it. Caleb Williams' dad is easily picking the Giants in this
Giants. I think those last 3, Caleb Williams' dad would they'd be okay on the approved Bijan Lon list. That provides the Bill Belichick stays at New England.
Yeah, right. If he's gone,
if they undergo a coaching change, Caleb Williams' dad is right out.
The successor, isn't it Mayo? Is that kind of the rumor on the
street? That's what they say.
But then Steve Belichick's going to get the job, and everything's going to be all weird.
Well, and listen, Duke basketball and Syracuse basketball and Kansas State football and all those other teams that had heir apparent coaches that the other guy stuck around so long that the heir apparent went and got a job somewhere else. So, except for Kansas State, where it turned out that Bill Snyder's kid may not have been that good, and he went elsewhere and hasn't been seen since, and they hired a much better coach.
There you go. All right, sad boy boat time. 4 people go on the sad boy boat. I think one of them has to be either Mike McCarthy or Dak, or both.
There's room for both.
I know I'm new here, but I think we need to christen the sad boy boat the Mario Cristobal. That should be the name of the boat.
Listen, I'm okay with that because Mario seemed like a really affable, cool guy when he was at Oregon. And ever since he's returned to the pressure of his alma mater, he seems to be like chewing on glass all the time. That guy must mainline Pepto-Bismol at this point.
All right. So we got a name for the boat.
Welcome aboard the Mario Cristobal.
Is a cowboy making this trip?
Oh, I put Dak on that boat.
Yes,
Dak goes on the boat. Okay, yeah. Sean Payton going to continue to be on the boat for like 8 weeks straight.
Yes. Can I be cruel?
Yes.
Does Jerry Jones make the sad boy boat as he realizes that his team may not win prior to his passing?
Sure.
Let's
put
hit that point. University of Arkansas is not helping him out. They're having a bad season. He has labored greatly to try and manufacture something that, as was said a couple of weeks ago, Tupac's murder was solved before the Cowboys returned to the NFC Championship game.
I think I may have said that to you in a text.
Tupac's murder was solved. It's still funny to me.
Yeah. Oh, and the thing with Jerry is, he's not even a bad GM.
No.
He's, I'd say, above average. At the bottom of the below average tier, but I think he's better than league average. Some of those Cowboy defenses in the last 5 or 10 years have been really, really good. But he just seems snake bit at quarterback play. They just can't find the guy.
Yeah. All right, that leaves one seat,
He also
right?
briefly thought that Quincy Carter was going to be the guy, and that was his own fault.
Quincy.
Oof.
He did make some mistakes. But does that leave a seat left? We have one seat left, I think. Sean Payton, Jerry and Dak, Daniel Jones, Dayball,
Dayball, the only other suggestion I would have, because I like
Frank Reich?
Dayball on there a lot, would be
me.
every Notre Dame fan whose season is now over.
Oh, that's a good one. Let's do that. Every Notre Dame fan.
Because they love to talk about how good Notre Dame is. And listen, I thought Notre Dame was great. And then Sam Hartman fell apart and they got beat by the House of Brahm. And now they're playing for nothing because they can't win a conference championship and they won't make the playoff.
Ouch. That's not great. That's not great. All right. Time for broadcasting moments of the week. There's not a ton. There's not a ton this week, but I will share my screen and show you this. Oh, I will show you this giant. Wait a minute. This giant head that Eli Manning has of his brother with a giant forehead. There it is. There it is.
Wait. Eli's casting stones about giant foreheads?
Yes. Eli busted this thing out, which ESPN was great. How long has he had this cut out for? That was fun. George Kittle wore a shirt that said "Fuck Dallas." Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Under his jersey, "Fuck Dallas."
Like, it's so weird because it's not like Dallas has done anything to us in a while.
Right. They
And
don't
it's just
deserve
like,
this.
where does this visceral hatred of the Cowboys come from? Like, I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Beating a dead horse. Literally. This is fun for me. The Lions and 49ers were in the exact same trick play on the exact same day, and they both scored. That was kind of fun.
This is me playing Tecmo Bowl circa 1990.
Double trick play.
The Cardinals had that play, the double reverse pass. Hell yeah.
The Raiders, they beat the Packers for the first time since 1987. Oh my Lord. And then they got this, what is this thing called in Vegas? The Dome?
I think they literally call it the Sphere.
The Sphere. That looks like a lot of fun to go to.
I would love to see, like, however many hundreds of years down the road when civilization collapses, like standing in the ruins of the Sphere and wondering, like,
why?
Like Osmandius, the King of Kings.
Why did the civilization collapse? That brings us to segment Greg's bets. Last week it was 4 for 5. Not a sad boy. This week's bets are Cowboys -2 against Chargers. I would not take that bet.
No, I would.
That scares me. Buccaneers +3 against the Lions.
Well, I would take that. And I know the Lions are good, and I know the Bucs only have a puncher's chance in every game they play, but they've punched out a few people.
They have. Broncos +10.5 against Chiefs. This is very interesting, Greg. Why are you doing that? Texans +1.5 against Saints.
It's because there's no Ambien.
Still this season, no Ambien bets. What's going on here?
I would take that Texans Saints. That's not crazy.
Texans over Saints, or Texans +1.5. 49ers -5 against Browns.
Yeah, I would take that one too.
That line seems low, and I'm okay with it. But like, they've been annihilating people.
That's true. That is true. All right, that's Greg's bets. Time for the Stripe Spiral, Drew's segment where he's going to talk about Miami, and I can't wait to hear about this.
Well, it all has to be told through the lens of Louisville. They're the most interesting team in this whole thing.
The House of Brahm.
The House of Brahm. Because if you haven't looked at Louisville staff, Jeff Brahm is their head coach. His younger brother, Brian Brahm, who was briefly a quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, is their offensive coordinator. And their other brother, who also apparently played for Louisville at some point in his life, is like on the administrative staff of the team. So the House of Brahm, it's a family affair at Louisville these days. Louisville goes out there, ends Notre Dame's season, remains undefeated, sits at the top of their division of the ACC. Now, look down their schedule. Where's the loss for Louisville? They've got Pitt next week. They've got Pitt this coming weekend. Then they've got Duke at home. Now, that's a tough game. Duke is still good. I know Duke's lost a game that people wanted them to win. They lost the thriller against Notre Dame, whatever. But like Duke's pretty good. But if Louisville gets through Duke, they play a bunch of crap. And then previously you would have said, oh, they'll lose to Miami in week 11. They might not lose to Miami in week 11. And if they beat them, then they get Kentucky at home for their rivalry game. Louisville could easily find their way into the ACC championship against Florida State, against possibly a resurgent Miami. They would have a rematch. It's the possibilities here for Louisville are crazy, considering that they were an unranked team that nobody was thinking about 3 weeks ago. But as you look down their schedule, there's not that I think Louisville's going to run the table, but there's no obvious losses on their schedule. So all of a sudden they're in the driver's seat in the ACC, which means they're in the driver's seat for a playoff spot. And Miami, oh boy, to say that the clock was mismanaged is a gross understatement. Like, somebody had to be the adult in the room and look up and be like, wait, what are we doing? Like, use your own timeout to call a time to save some time and save yourselves if you need to. I've never seen anything like it. I've never, like, that's some video game shit you do at the end, right? Where you're like, I just got to rack up some extra yards because it's fun. And I want to see if I can break the single game rushing record or whatever. Like, I've never seen anything like that where a team, like, and I get it. They started driving. They picked up some first downs. They were probably in the rhythm of their offense. They weren't thinking about the fact that the game was now functionally over. And then they just kept handing the ball off. And if you listen to the play-by-play, the guy doing the play-by-play, all of a sudden he has this moment where, like, they're talking about sort of the big picture of Miami winning, and like Georgia Tech's season is in the basement after they give up 38 unanswered to Bowling Green, and now they lose to Miami in a tough game. And then all of a sudden, him and the color guy in the booth are both like, wait a minute, what's happening here? Like, do we have the number of timeouts right that both teams have? Like, why on earth? And again, this is why the sad boy boat is the Mario Cristobal, because what on earth, like, if nobody else, the buck stops with the coach, right? Like, even if your OC is the dude's calling plays, your coach has got to be the one going, bro, stop. Like, it's in the bag. Lay it up. Take a knee. Walk out of here. It's unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the nightmare scenario, right? Like, if you're playing Tecmo Bowl in that scenario, which doesn't have a kneel down play, and you're like, I'll just keep the ball on the ground and run it out, and then your dude fumbles and the other team picks it up and you score, you shut the power off before the game finishes. And you're like, I'll replay that one later. This was totally unbelievable. Now, Miami's not drawing dead or anything. It's one loss. They still could make their way back to the ACC championship game. Plenty of one-loss teams have made it to the playoff. But this one stings, and this one's going to hurt them for a long time because it's not a good loss. And not just because of the optics of the actual loss, but because Georgia Tech's not that good. And so now you have a blemish on your resume that you can't really get rid of easily. In other college football news, Notre Dame eliminated by Louisville, as discussed. So it would, add to the list of teams that we thought were going to be functionally great that have been eliminated. Notre Dame now out. Texas A&M now out. Jimbo will probably still manage to stave off the Charlie Weiss money for another year or two. But Texas A&M out. So add them to the list with LSU and Clemson and a bunch of other highly rated teams that we thought were going to be good. And in the meantime, there's kind of like the NFL. We're down to the point now where we started the season with 133 undefeated teams. We're down to 14. And we're still not yet at the point where all 14 of those teams are in the AP poll, because I don't think the voters think all that much of James Madison, which is a shame. Go Dukes.
Hey, he's a great guy. Did a great job. Wrote a great constitution.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of old school coastal teams, big win for the University of Virginia. They get off the schneid against William and Mary at home, which
the Jefferson Bowl.
Worth mentioning only because Virginia, unfortunately, had been playing so poorly. They were like a touchdown dog to William and Mary at home.
Wow.
Now they came out and won by 17 or whatever it was, so it's like good for them. But the bettors were not high on Virginia's chances to win a game. They have been falling apart this year. Even though they have a quarterback with the coolest name ever, their quarterback's name is Tony Muskett.
Good name.
Yeah. And so, but we're down to 14 undefeated teams. And really, as you look at the as you look at the 14 teams and you look at the one-loss teams, there's not that many teams out there that unilaterally look like world beaters who have just come out and stomped everybody every week. You're down to Michigan, who, as we've discussed, will step on their own genitals by the end of the season. And Washington is the only other team that's really kind of put it to everybody they've played, which leads to the game to watch this weekend in the 3:30 window, Oregon at Washington, 8 versus 7. That's a tremendous game. That game has incredible playoff implications.
It's nice to see Washington put it to somebody besides, their own staff.
Like, yes. Yeah, well, Washington's come of age now with their 52-year-old quarterback. The
only team that's putting it more to other people is Northwestern.
Oh boy! And by the way, that's going to get worse before it gets better. Same.
That's the kind of thing that's going to get like a university president fired.
Yes,
that's going to be like Baylor.
I said about Michigan.
It's going to be like Baylor
season 2.
It's going to be like Baylor, where it's going to be like it's not going to be SMU death. Death.
No, but it's going to get worse and worse and worse, and somebody's going to have to fall on the carpet for it.
Which is just it's a little bizarre to think of, just considering like how perfect a fit he was for that place.
Yeah,
and how
I know
he turned Northwestern into a semi-respectable program.
Well, and as I said at the start of the season, don't be shocked in 2 years when he shows up on Saban's staff as a defensive assistant.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Art Briles got work, didn't he?
No,
he's not.
No. Who was it? Grambling was interested in him, and the collective fan base and university got together and said, please don't hire him, and they didn't. Then the Hamilton Tiger Cats were interested in him, and the fan base got together and said, please don't hire him, and they didn't. And he was doing some work, I think, for a high school team as like a volunteer assistant. The reason he's popped up in the news this year is because he is the father-in-law of Oklahoma's offensive coordinator. So he appeared at an Oklahoma game, and that was a whole PR thing they had to get around. In our weekly check of Nebraska, unfortunately for Nebraska won. So they're now 3-3 on the season.
Oh, come on.
They're gradually putting themselves out of the Ron Rivera sweepstakes.
So, yeah, they're careening rapidly towards bowl eligibility. Look for them in a let's see, what's one of the pre-Christmas bowls? The Cure
Poinsettia Bowl.
Yeah, they'll be playing in the San Diego. Well, it's not the San Diego County Credit Union Poinsettia Bowl anymore, but it used to be. I don't know who the hell the sponsor is now. The FurnitureGallery.com Bowl.
CampingWorld.com Bowl.
CampingWorld.com Bowl. That's a good one too.
Pets.com. It's back.
The little sock puppet, right? That was Pets.com.
Mm-hmm.
So intrigue continues, and we're only a couple of weeks away from the first legitimate college football playoff rankings, and that's when the chips will really be down, and we'll see who's in and who's out. In the meantime, just more jockeying for position, but the big one this weekend is Washington, Oregon. That's a huge game for the Pac-2, or as some people are calling it, the Tupac.
Okay.
Despite the fact that neither of those teams will be in the league anymore, and now this will be a conference game in the Big Ten. People in Piscataway, New Jersey, I'm sure are raptly watching this game with fevered attention.
That's amazing.
And that's where we. Oh, and by the way, the Red River rivalry was one of the great games of the season. If you didn't watch that, you missed out. Game was unbelievable. I know Texas lost, but I feel like Texas is still in contention. I feel like Sark's got that team pointed in the right direction. Oklahoma, it turns out, is better than anybody thought, at least on that given Saturday. It was a bonkers game. It was unbelievable.
The which Manning kid is at Texas? Is it
Arch?
Arch.
It's Cooper's eldest
son. Okay.
Yeah.
Cooper.
Yeah, and I know, if Texas loses another game, people are going to start crying for Arch Manning. But people forget, Quinn Ewers was the number one recruit in his class.
Yeah.
He was the number one in the Elite 11. He's the real deal. Arch is going to have to sit behind him the whole season.
All right. Looking forward to that. No football FUBAR this week because Mark's not here. So let's just move to the game ball section. Mm-hmm. You can give a game ball out to anybody you want. Doesn't matter what form of football they perform at. I gave it to a kicker one week in college. So you got a game ball for me? Let's start with Drew. You got a game ball for me this week, Drew?
Who's my game ball this week? Can I go ahead and give my game ball to Jamar Chase? And I know seriously, and I know that like
He had a
the
great game.
Bengals are I know that the Bengals are a mess, and I know that his season hasn't been great, and I know that Joe Burrow's leg is hurt, but like there's something about Jamar Chase as a football player that I enjoy watching. And
Sure.
I've hit that point and that age in my football fandom where I enjoy seeing great talent play great. And so Jamar Chase.
Also, he gave us the quote of the year.
Yes, he did.
Elves got elves. Got beat by a bunch of damn elves. All right, Mike, who's your game ball going to?
Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Every 3 minutes, you've got a new headline with Brock puns in them. If you're watching,
Brock
you're gonna
Purdy,
Brock out with your
my best
Brock
one.
out.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, just putting it aside, the man with the last pick of the draft, and he's balling. You know, he's dismantling. He's moving around the pocket. He's making great throws. Like, he's making great choice. The guy makes good decisions.
Even
like,
in real estate, I mean, he's got a roommate.
Yeah.
Well, smart. He's smart.
Drew will know this more than me. I can't remember where I saw it, but like basically, I think it was the Iowa State coach who's like, "Yeah, Brock Purdy shows up and takes your job."
Mm-hmm.
Like, the guy just is a winner, and he's got, you know, he's been discounted all the time. He's got this swagger to him that just radiates leader. The dude's a leader, and like that team follows him. I know it's all really cliched, but
no, I'm just going to say as a cautionary tale, those are the exact same things that Josh McDaniel said about Tim Tebow.
Oh my God!
And what's happened to the Denver Broncos and the Patriots ever since? Suffering.
And the Jets too. The Jets had him, didn't they?
That's right.
That's the part, and now we're getting way off the rails. That's the part that bothers me the most about the butt fumble with Mark Sanchez.
Wait, I have to interrupt. A friend of mine from high school is married to Steve Gregory, the man who picked up the butt fumble. I've shook that man's hand.
Can you get us a line to Caleb Williams' dad next, please?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
It depends if I'm back next week or not.
Okay.
This is the part that bothers me the most about the butt fumble, is that Tim Tebow was on that Jets sideline. The guy who was born to run that play was standing on the sideline while you ran it with a guy who was the worst possible option to run it. Unbelievable. That's the part that bothers me most about it.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. All right, game ball for me, going to my former love, DJ Moore. He went Flipper Anderson on those guys. And he doesn't play for my team anymore. Just continuing
that list
grow.
is getting longer, Ryan.
Yeah, Brian Burns is going to get traded and have 9 sacks. He's going to break Derek Thomas's record. That's coming next. Whoever picks him up.
Would you like me to run you down the list of Mets pitchers who threw a no-hitter after they left the Mets?
Oh, yeah, that's kind of where we're at here. But good for DJ Moore. He's a good guy. Good for you. All right. Let's do some plugs. What do we got coming up on the music blog this week, Drew?
Bloody good music undetermined this week, although I did just finish a listen of the new album from the band As in Hell, all lowercase, all one word, which is the side project. It's the death metal side project of Michael Paulson from Volbeat. It's okay. It like the riffs are cool. They sound like death metal Volbeat riffs, but I don't know. The whole package is missing a little something. So that was the last thing I kind of listened to this week. I did finally post my review of the Contrast album, which is both the most enjoyable and most annoying album I've ever listened to. So read the review on Bloody Good Music.
I love that. Mike, do you have any plug? You want to plug anything?
No, but I will say this, Drew, there is hope for the children of America. I was talking with one of my students the other day who was wearing an Iron Maiden hoodie to school. Now, wait, it gets better. She's, 15-year-old kid, loves metal. And I said, who would be your dream show? She goes, Type O Negative. Didn't miss a beat. I'm like,
wow.
I have someone who I think you would enjoy. I go, he wrote a book about it. He's like, he's been to that many shows. Yes.
Closing in on 300.
Wow.
I got the book at like 200.
Oh, yeah.
100.
Here's the only thing I'll say in response to that, Mike, is the only word you said in that sentence that made me sad is she. because she is now doomed to a life of like unwashed slavering metal guys like poking at her from a distance. It shows like, hey, hey, you. Like that's, but then they're also like weird shy nerds, so that's as creepy as it's gonna get. They're just gonna like gesture at her and then just stare and not do anything. But good for her.
Yeah.
All right. Plug for me. The TGIF podcast virginity episode is out, which Greg and myself and Mark discussed. Not even like all the virginity things about TGIF.
I can't imagine the three of you having a conversation about virginity and it being awkward.
It was not awkward, but
it sounds comfortable and informative.
We're three experts in the field, so it was excellent. You should go find it. But highlight of the show for me was all three of us doing Vince McMahon impressions, trying to teach you how to have sex via videotape. Is probably the funniest thing and the stupidest thing we've ever done. So
now, is this a videotape you had to mail away for?
It was the premise was Vince McMahon doing an instructional videotape to teach you how to have sex while you watch another movie at the same time with 2 VCRs. That was the premise, and then it got really off the rails.
So basically, he invented Netflix and chill.
Yes. And then in the meantime, the girls went to the gymnasium and had to watch the other film.
It is maybe the silliest thing ever, and I can't stop rewinding and listening to my own stupid joke. It's one of the stupidest jokes ever. With 3 Vince McMahon impressions going on simultaneously, talking about weird stuff. You got to check at least that part out if you're not into TGIF or even wrestling. Just the Vince McMahon impression alone is fun to do. So I could do that for hours. So go check that out. We'll be back with week 6. Mike, thank you.
Thanks,
We
Mike.
appreciate you being
Pleasure,
on.
gentlemen.
It's a lot of fun. Send Mark back to London again so you can be on.
I'm going to Brock Purdy Mark.
He's just taking
I'm
over.
taking his job. He's like Jimmy Garoppolo, except not handsome. Get out.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Peace out.